This is going to be on the internet, right? I enjoy Diet Coke.
If we don't clear the rights, we'll have to blur that.
No, damn, then I don't get free Diet Coke.
I don't think that's how that works anyway.
It is how it works.
You just say it and you get it?
Yes. Brian Michael Bendis put Chick-fil-A. He put Chick-fil-A in Ultimate Spider-Man for years. And then one day they just catered a Marvel lunch.
That's amazing.
I know, it's awesome. But not as awesome as Diet Coke. What? So yeah, let's get this thing rolling.
So yeah, we'll get this rolling. So for those who are not aware, and I'm hoping everybody is, Dan Slott, you are a writing virtuoso in the comic world.
Yes. More like a writing demigod.
Writing demigod for different universes.
Not a full god.
Just a demigod.
Yes, like
You're drinking Diet Coke.
Diet Coke. I'm a 3/4 Bendis. That's how you count that in Bendai.
And the plural of Bendis would be Bendai. That makes sense.
There is no plural of Bendis. There is only Bendis.
That's very true. That's very true.
Yes.
There's not enough Luke Cage to go around if there was.
No. You will reach a critical mass of Bendis if, like, Luke Cage ever dates Kitty Pryde.
Oh, God.
Oh, my God!
It's just nothing but...
We're at prime Bendis!
It's just a supernova of testosterone.
No!
So, Dan, you've written pretty much every character, everything. You've dabbled in pretty much everything, so...
Everything ever done. Come in!
Come in.
Yeah, because I started off doing licensed comics. And for years, they ran me through every single licensed property. So like Ren and Stimpy, Earthworm Jim, Power Rangers, Tomb Raider, Dexter's Lab, Powerpuff Girls, Looney Tunes, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. If there was a license, I worked on it. It was kind of neat. And then I finally was able to break in and do Marvel and DC superheroes.
And I was actually saying that you kind of bridged that gap because you put Spider-Man in an issue of Ren and Stimpy.
Oh,
is that true?
Yeah, when I was working on Ren and Stimpy, in my early Marvel career, every time I got a chance to use a character, I thought it might be my last. Like, I thought at any moment I'd get fired and I'd never get to work in comics again. So I jammed Spider-Man into that issue of Ren and Stimpy because I thought I would never ever get a chance to write Spider-Man, and yeah, I better do it.
Do you remember the plot of that issue?
Yeah, it was Ren and Stimpy #6. I fought with Nickelodeon over the title. It was originally going to be called Clash of Titans, Breakfast of Champions, where Spider-Man fought Powdered Toast Man. And
That's fantastic.
They got really worried about the phrase Breakfast of Champions because of Wheaties, and they thought it was trademarked, and Nickelodeon got really upset, and at the last minute, right before, as it was going out the door, they changed it to Breakfast of Chumpions. And it's
parody law. There you go.
It still hurts me when I hear that. It reaches down into my soul and it hurts me.
Did it seem like a dig from Nickelodeon?
No. It just they were super protecting themselves. They were always like that with everything. They wanted to mess around with everything. Someone told me it's someone's job in licensing, on any licensed property, to, when they give notes, to cut 20% of your material. If they don't cut 20%, they don't feel like they're doing their job.
Like if they have to reach a certain quota.
Yeah, like they have to justify their existence as licensors. They must cut. And a lot of times, like, your best material is the stuff they cut first because it's the shiniest toy. Like, we must cut that. So someone gave me this great advice, and they said, write 20% over.
Yeah. Write
20% over, and write stuff that is so terrible and stuff that is just so morally offensive that that's the stuff they'll want to cut first, and then everything else you've written will survive. And this never worked because they would leave the stuff that I would find morally reprehensible in the comic and cut the stuff I loved anyway. So I remember in that issue, for example, where Ren and Stimpy was fighting Powdered Toast Man, the reason why Powdered Toast Man became a bad guy was someone gave him a yeast infection.
Oh. And no one picked up on
He's
that?
made out of toast. He's made out of toast. And I wrote the joke to be cut. I specifically wrote it to be cut. And that's what stayed in the comic. And I was like, oh God.
So people are flipping through Ren and Stimpy going, Dan Slott, who's this deviant?
I know.
Sneaking weird jokes into kids' books. How dare you?
It was worse because years later I would work in the Batman Adventures comic that was based on the Bruce Timm, Paul Dini universe. And I was working on Batman Adventures. At the same time, I also had my major breakthrough, which was Arkham Asylum Living Hell. So at the same time when I was writing a kiddie book, well, not a kiddie book, an all ages book, which is very different. I wish more comics were all ages and that it didn't have the stigma.
Agreed.
So I was working on all ages Batman, and I was doing Arkham Asylum Living Hell. And for years, I've been writing all these kiddie books, and I've been writing Looney Tunes and all this stuff, and I was having the hardest time breaking into superheroes. And finally, I got to do Batman Adventures. You know, I got to Batman. Right. I got to write Batman. Yeah. I was all happy. And then, a weird circumstance, I got to write Arkham Asylum Living Hell. It got, you guys know the game Telephone or Chinese Whispers? I had made a pitch for a Phantom Stranger miniseries, and by the time it left the room, it had turned into Arkham Asylum. And I wasn't in the room. So I'd done the pitch, and I went to see my editor, and I said, how'd it go? And they like both your pitches. They want you to, I had this other thing, which was my own superhero idea. And they said, they want you to do that next after you finish the Arkham Asylum miniseries. Well, you mean the Phantom Stranger thing? And they're like, yeah, it's now Arkham Asylum. And I was like, great! I was like, oh my God, I get to work in Batman's world out of shit accident. Out of a pure accident of bad communication, I got to do Arkham Asylum. And I went home and that weekend and I was just like, this is my shot. You know, I've been working on Looney Tunes for years, Ren and Stimpy and Looney Tunes. Like, if I write this Batman story that is so violent and horrible and disgusting, you know, it was effectively, if you know Arkham Asylum, it's the prison where they keep all of Batman's villains. And it's an insane asylum. And I suddenly realized, like, oh my God, I could do the Batman version of the HBO show Oz. This could be awesome.
Now that I think about it, that's kind of how it reads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, if I do a Joker rape scene in the shower, no one will ever have me write Bugs Bunny ever again. This is fantastic. And I wrote that scene. And when the Washington Post wrote it up, they mentioned that scene. And I get this call from my mom, because she read it in the Washington Post. And she was like, why did you write that? Why can't you do more things with Tweety Bird and Sylvester? Why are you doing that?
You were writing such nice books with the Looney Tunes.
Yeah, why? Well, your father and I don't like that. My parents are the best reverse barometer for when my books are doing well. Like, did you guys read She-Hulk? Yeah. So, if you remember, there's a She-Hulk issue where they help Spider-Man sue the Daily Bugle for libel. And there is a sequence in there where Spider-Man finally takes the stand, and they're in court, and a lawyer who's a friend of She-Hulk is asking Spider-Man, Spider-Man, I just question, why do you think Jameson has it out for you? And Spider-Man sitting there goes, I've thought about this long and hard, a lot of soul searching, and I think the real reason J. Jonah Jameson has it out for me is because I'm black. And everyone in the court looks over at Jonah, and Jonah's like, I didn't know. Some of my best friends are. And then Spider-Man goes, kidding. Everyone's like laughing. I'm just messing with you. I'm not. And I ran that joke by my dad, and my dad went, that is not funny. That just went, gold. That was my first time, it was just gold. Oh, so I was working on Arkham Asylum at the same time I was working on Batman Adventures. And both Batman books, and one is horrible. One is, Joker rape scenes in the shower and stuff. And one is all ages Batman. And somewhere in the middle of that, the gearbox popped, and I was writing. I got this call from my editor on Batman Adventures, and they're like, "Dan, you need to change this story." Because I was mixing worlds, and I'm like, "What?" And like, you did a Larry Flint joke. And I'm like, "Yeah, I did, didn't I?" Yeah. But it's a funny one, right? It's a really good Larry Flint joke.
Copy and paste. All right.
Oh dear, that shouldn't be in Batman Adventures. What was I thinking? Yeah, so every now and then that happens. I get calls from Nick Lowe on Spider-Man all the time, going, "Yeah, you're not doing that." If you guys read Spider-Verse, in Spider-Verse, Moreland and the Inheritors are killing Spider-Man across dimensions, but in so many different ways that were horrible and sometimes poetic and sometimes just graphic. And Nick would read it and go, "Yeah, no, he's just snapping his neck. Yeah, no, that one, no, neck snap, no, neck snap, yeah, neck snap." So you read all the Spider-Verse, and all the Morelands are doing are just going to Spider-Man left and right. They're just snapping necks. But that wasn't what it was in the plot.
So he's bitten by a radioactive daffodil?
No, but it was just, no, there was constantly, instead of the snap, that was like the okay death. All the things that were happening before with like things being ripped out of chests or horrible things happening. You're like, no. Did you guys read the latest issue with Mr. Negative in Shanghai? No, I'm going to ruin something for you. Cloak and Dagger are in it, and Cloak has teleporting powers. And at one point they're fighting guys on this ship, and at this point Cloak and Dagger are now evil. They've been changed. They're normally good guys, but now they've been flipped by the powers of Mr. Negative, and they're now evil, Cloak and Dagger. And at one point I had Cloak suck up all these guys into his cloak on the bridge of the ship. Just, they're prison guards on a prison ship. And then he teleports them out to sea. In the original script, he teleports them out to sea in front of sharks. It's horrible. And Nick's like, "Yeah, we're getting rid of the sharks. There aren't any sharks." And I'm like, "Why?" Is it because eventually Cloak will be good again, and you can't have him having murdered people. Right, murder by shark. You can't do that. I'm like, oh. Yeah, every now and then I'll do something in the. Everyone thinks I'm so nice, and every now and then I'll do something in the book, and Nick will just be like, "Who hurt you? Who did this to you? Why? We had like a, because I'm an adorable teddy bear physique person. People think they can just come up and hug me. It's weird. But we'll be, and that just becomes my persona. And we were doing one of our creator summits where we get all the writers and all the editors into a room. We were talking over a big thing, the Civil War II, which is coming out, so I can't spoil anything. But we were all talking about, well, what happens next, and what happens here, and what should happen there. And I went, what if you did this? And then that happens. And then there's like, everyone in the room is quiet, and I think it was like Jason Aaron or somebody went like, don't fuck with Dan Slott. don't. Wow, that's dark. It's really dark.
Suddenly everybody starts inching away from you.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like that South Park moment where, you know, like with Scott Tenorman and the parents and the chili. You know, it's like, yeah, we are never going to upset Cartman again. And that's kind of messed up. It's cool to come in. Yeah, come in. Come in. It's all good. Well, okay, so there you go. I've come full circle because it was the Batman Arkham Asylum thing. So what's next?
So just kind of, I mean, we're kind of in the spot where you're talking about when you're working on the superhero books. Just to kind of touch a little bit more on you working on like Ren and Stimpy and Looney Tunes. Of those books, because I know I'm sure a lot of those are they're just their jobs, they're writing jobs to kind of get in the business.
No job. I love every
awesome.
job. Okay. No, because the thing is like, dude, it's not lifting heavy boxes. This is not like, oh, I'm in the coal mine. Oh, it's so terrible. I'm writing comic books. It's the best. So if I'm writing Scooby-Doo, I'm like, dude, I'm writing Scooby-Doo. This is great. You know, I'm writing Bugs Bunny. That's a hoot. Right. But the thing is, in my heart, I wanted to write Spider-Man. I wanted to write Fantastic Four. And you're like, see, that's awesome. yeah, but that's so there was like that feeling of, oh, I want to do so much more, but it was never a point where it's like, this job's terrible. I have to write comic books.
Well, that's awesome. Okay, so not with that mentality that it's still writing comics, it's still fantastic. Of those books, which was the most challenging for you to kind of grasp? And then the other question is obviously, which is your favorite? Which was your favorite to write?
Of the early days?
Of the different properties outside of superhero comics, which was the most challenging to grasp?
None of them were like super challenging. Like one of the things about licensed properties is, one, you can always say no to a job. You don't have to do a job. Oh, if you want to come in, you can come in. If you want to come in, you can come in. It's okay. No, you can come in. No. He hates me. Yeah, but you can say no to a job. And there's something, if you don't find something in that thing that you love, don't do it. But I think to me the most fun were when you work with someone for a long time. So when I was working on Ren and Stimpy, I worked with Mike Kazala, and that's part of the fun. Like the more you work on any one property, the weirder you can start going, the more you can start playing with the format, and the more like a trapeze act, the guy's going to catch you, and you get this trust.
Right.
And the longer you do it, it's like.
When you have a minute, I have a question.
Oh,
what did you
sure.
do for Ren and Stimpy?
Oh, I wrote the comic from the launch all the way up for like first year, 2 years, and then did the specials. It was fun. But like with Mike, once you start working, you also get to this point where you become like the couple that no one wants to play Pictionary with. And that's when things are great, where you're like, oh, and then we could do the thing, yeah, with the Twinkie and the bat and but then the anvil, oh, that would be hysterical. And then you're like, oh, and then the comic comes in, it's great. And you're like, to me, that's like the best part of the job, is when you're in that zone, and that's when working is just fun. Like Spider-Man's a challenge because I find in life you never get what you want the way you like it. That's part of life. No matter how much you want something, even when you get the thing you want, life is a monkey's paw. Do you guys know the story of the monkey's paw? Yeah, even when you get your wish, you always get it in a weird way. So a lot of times with Spider-Man, here I get to write Spider-Man, and I get to write Spider-Man every month, and that is awesome. And then it's like, no, you're not writing it every month. We're increasing how the rate the book comes out. You must write it 2 times a month. And you're like, what? And suddenly it's I Love Lucy and the Chocolate Factory, and you're like, I'm really loving doing this. I wish I could stop for a second. Why can't I just do the book once a month? Because we're making lots of money at Marvel, and the book is selling really well. Keep doing more. And you're like, oh, Jesus. So it's that can be like, oh God. So like, I would love to work on Spider-Man and sleep. So that's the challenge. Like they'll be like, this thing inevitably happens when I'm like, you watch, like when I'm writing Silver Surfer, I'm taking all the time in the world I want on it, and Mike's taking all the time in the world he wants on it, and because of that, sometimes the book comes out 8 times a year instead of 12. But we love every single issue, and every I's been dotted and every T's been crossed, and oh, that's just so nice. And with Spider-Man, it's like, where's the next issue? And Marvel doesn't care almost if they don't get 12 Surfers a year, because it's not making them that much money. Right. But Marvel, like Spider-Man's one of the flagships. And it sells so well that they need to come out. So at any point, if they ever take me in the back and shoot me and put another person in there, they're gonna have to do that too. And it's when I'm working on Spider-Man, there'll be a point where it's like 3 a.m, and my mind will just go some weird place, and the story will come in, and the editor will look at it and they'll go, that was a 3 a.m. idea, wasn't it? And I could totally tell the editorial difference between Steve Wacker and Tom Brevoort, because I worked with Tom Brevoort for years on She-Hulk and Great Lake Avengers and Mighty Avengers and Avengers Initiative and all these different books, and we have a good rapport. And I had worked with Steve, weirdly enough, at DC on Arkham Asylum and Justice League Adventures. And then he came over to Marvel, and he liked working with me, and he put me on the Spider-Man team. And this is so, both guys got to read out Spider-Man because Tom was a senior editor on the book. And I remember I turned in this one thing, and at the same time I pitched a 3 in the morning idea, like, oh, wouldn't this be a great issue? And I owed them script, and I got 2 different notes from both editors. One, like Tom's note was, that is the stupidest idea you've ever had. Finish the damn script. You know, and Steve's note was, that's a great idea, Dan. What a great idea. But let's talk about it after you finish the script. Tom was right. It was a really stupid idea. I thought it would be great if Spider-Man got Pym particles and grew into giant Spider-Man. And then he could like punch Ping Fang Boom over like New York, and it'd be like giant Spider-Man fighting like Godzilla. But he'd still do Spider-Man stuff. Like if someone down there was like mugging someone and running away with a purse, he'd be like, stop that! Here's your purse back. Thank you, giant Spider-Man. Anytime.
And the cover pretty much draws itself. You just do an homage to the Universal Pictures Tarantula cover.
No. The cover is Spidey Cops Out, where you see that giant image of Spidey-Man going like, no more. You know that? Right. But he's really that size. Stupidest idea you've ever had.
Well, you're writing it twice a month.
Yeah, no.
You may gotta go back to it.
And then there's the ideas I will not back down from that I really want to do. And they're like, you are never writing that story. I had this one where Spider-Man is in a furry convention, and they're like, no! But it's so good, wait, let me tell you, no! It's really funny, no! My furry convention story is great. I had this opening to Amazing Spider-Man #1 for Volume 3, and that was when Peter Parker comes back. You know, after the Doc Ock mind swap gets swapped back, and I never ran up by Steve Wacker. I didn't get a chance because I ran up by Tom Brevoort, and Tom went, "Yeah, you're not doing that." I'm like, "No, this is the greatest opening," and he's like, yeah, that'll be a great opening when you're working at Image with a creator-owned character, but not with Marvel Spider-Man. I'm like, come on. He's like, you know what? Joe Quesada's in the office today. Go. You know, because Joe's out doing all Hollywood stuff now and Netflix, and he's CEO. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I go down the hall and I knock on Joe Quesada's office, and I'm like, hey, Joe. He's like, hey, Dan, what's up? And I'm like, I got this opening I want to do for Amazing Spider-Man 1, and Tom thought I should run it by you. And he's like, okay. And Joe sits there and he puts his hands together, he puts like the finger out like that, he rests his chin on it. And he's like, okay. And he's listening to me as I tell a story, and and I get to the end and he goes, yeah, Dan, that'll be really great when you have your own character. but not with Marvel Spider-Man, no. And they hadn't talked. They know each other's brains. And here's the scene. You cut to Spider-Man, and he's got his back to the wall, and he's holding himself up on the wall by his 2 feet. You know, he's doing that thing where he's pressed against the wall, and he's got his cell phone. And he's on his cell phone, and he's like, hey, Cap, is that you? And he's like, and he's got to Avengers Tower, and there's Captain America on the phone going, hey, Spidey, what's up? He's like, yeah, I just want to check, you guys know everything now, right? You know, that wasn't me, that was Doc Ock's mind in my brain, and you know I'm back to normal, right? He's like, yeah, we've got that all sorted out. That wasn't you, that was Doc Ock. And yeah, am I still kicked out of the Avengers? So, well, you know, we haven't reinstated you yet. He's like, so nothing I do right now will have any bearing or reflection on the Avengers. He's like, no, what are you thinking of? Thanks, they hang up. And then you cut to the gay pride parade.
Dramatic pause.
And all these people are booing because the gay pride parade has come to a complete stop. And everyone's like, boo, boo, and you see blocking the road are thinly veiled but non-legal, it's legally fine because they're parody, versions of the Westboro Baptist Church. And they've got their like, God hates fags, like, and they're stopping the gay pride parade. And everyone's like, boo. And then suddenly, thwip, 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 and their mouths just went, and then they're hanging upside down from a flagpole. And everyone's like, yay! And then Spider-Man swings down, and he grabs the gay pride, and he's like, rainbow flag at the front of the thing, and everyone's like, yeah, Spider-Man! You're never doing that. Oh. Like, wouldn't that have been great? Would have been awesome!
It's Spider-Man versus bigotry, it's great.
Yeah, I was like, what if we made it Million Man March and they were Klansmen? Oh, you could do that. And I'm like, oh, come on.
You're running Green Arrow now?
Yeah. Exactly. Man. Awesome.
So, God, now I just want a full book of nothing, just rejected Spider-Man ideas.
Everything you can't do. No, but that's part of the job. What a lot of people don't get, like you see guys who write fanfic, or you'll see someone on a message board, if I was doing Spider-Man, and like, I would do this. I'm like, you would not do that because they wouldn't let you do that. Part of the job is also to be able to roll with the punches and go, okay, let's go with it. I can't do that. That's gone. Here's my next thing. So we eventually had Spider-Man running around in a web diaper, which was an awesome opening. So, you find the next thing, which was originally going to be Spider-Man running around buck naked with the mask and everything Austin powering. And at that time we switched from editor Steve Wacker to Nick Lowe in the middle of that. And Nick was like, because there was going to be a moment where Spider-Man finally gets a free moment and he webs himself up a web diaper to cover things up. And Nick's first note was, the web diaper goes on immediately. Immediately. I'm like, all right. So there you make changes. And there was a change in that story. Because while he's webbing it up, people pulled out cell phones and they're all taking pictures and they're all blocked. So it is blocked. So you don't see what he's doing until the web underwear's there. And there was a line of dialogue that got changed. That this one woman in the front with her cell phone's going click, click, and she had a word balloon. And her word balloon was, the way it ran was hashtag Spidey Whiteys. That was the text that ran. And the original text was hashtag spare web shooter. And that got changed. That got cut.
So apparently you still use the 20% rule.
You use the 20% rule. No, but what these are licensed characters,
right?
And that's kind of like what my early part of my career taught me is that, you try to you shoot for the fences. And every now and then, you get to do the thing. You get to do the crazy, ludicrous. I want to swap Spider-Man's brains with Doc Ock between now and when Amazing Spider-Man 1 comes out, the movie. And
right.
Like, we trust you, do it. That's someone could have easily went, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the fun of it. You don't let that stop you. You don't let it break you and stop you from trying the next crazy idea. But at the same time, you know that these aren't your characters, and there's a 50-year legacy for this character, and this character is on footy pajamas and lunchboxes,
right.
And that's not your call to make.
Is that intimidating at all?
No, you just have to understand that's the rules.
Right.
You have to know that when you play the game, you're playing it by that rule. Mm-hmm. Well, when I came on to Spider-Man, there was an extra set of rules, which is Spider-Man and Mary Jane aren't married, and they can't be married,
right.
And we're going to split them, and this is the Spider-Man you're writing. Like there were a lot of angry fans at One More Day, mm-hmm. who were like, whatever you do, we hate it, because it was following One More Day.
Right.
Whatever you do, the thing when I was talking to the other Brand New Day writers, the thing I compared it to was I was like, with some section of fandom. It was like they were throwing rocks at a house, and we're something at you. And then the people moved out of that house, and we moved into the house, and they were still throwing the rocks.
Right.
And it's like any story we did, there were people on message boards going, "This doesn't justify it." Like we had to tell a magic story that
Right.
justified what the last team did.
Right.
And you're like, dude, we're just trying to tell Spider-Man. We're trying to tell Spider-Man stories. But we knew going in, these are the rules. And people are like, you shouldn't have taken that assignment. I'm like, dude, it's Spider-Man.
Right, yeah, of course.
If someone said to me, you get to write Spider-Man and he has a horn growing out of the middle of his head and his best friend's a purple monkey, I'm like, I will make that work.
That kind of sounds like something you'd want to write anyway.
It's Spider-Man. It's like the best thing ever. So, you know, and if you can't do that, if you can't sit in that chair, you don't get the right Spider-Man. And that's part of,
Right.
that's part of the assignment and part of the fun, too. If you can't find the fun in that, then you need to do something else.
Right. And so, well, we talk about Spider-Man a whole lot. Kind of pivoting off from that, is there a character that you've literally written for pretty much a vast majority of characters? Is there any character you haven't really touched on yet that you want to?
I would, at Marvel, there's a zillion characters I want to write.
Right.
Like at Marvel, I would love to write a run of Fantastic Four. I would kill to write FF, and the other character I would kill to write, my favorite character all through high school, Moon Knight. I would love to do a run of Moon Knight. I have, you know, I know different people are like this with different characters. Moon Knight is the only character I can say this. I own every single appearance of Moon Knight. Even if he shows up in the background panel of Contest of Champions, I had that issue. I got so mad when Essential Moon Knight came out, where it collected everything into like a phone book, because there were things in there like the Bill Sienkiewicz black and white, slightly tone painted pages from the backups of Rampaging Hulk magazine. And I had found all of those. I had gone on my hands and knees in long boxes in stores that were going out of business. I had the cobwebs on my knees to prove it. I found these things. I found all of them, and now they're all presented for you in one book. Damn you! I worked for it. Now you can just get it. You know? So I love Moon Knight so much. I would love to take a crack at that. At DC, you know, I got to work on Batman, but I didn't really get that. You know, I want to do Batman proper. I want to really do Batman, Superman. But then my tastes get kind of weird. Like, I'd love to do Creeper. I would love to do a run of Creeper and anything by Arnold Drake. So Dead Man, Silver Age Doom Patrol, Modern Doom Patrol. You know, and I love the Marvel family, but done as the Marvel family.
Right.
Like right down the middle, Mr. Talkie Tawny, you know, all of that. You know, this is a character who should be having picnics on the moon.
Right.
You know, like, what are we doing now? It's like the Marvel family.
Right.
The gee whiz, gosh golly, Shazam Marvel family. I would love to do that. So there are all kinds of weird stuff like that. But outside of like Marvel and DC, you know, like oh my God, if the Lucasfilm, if that property opens up in Marvel and we get to do Indiana Jones, there will be a bloodbath, because Charles Soule and Brian Michael Bendis and I will go into a pit and we will fight to the death to write Indiana Jones. Indiana Raiders is my favorite movie of all time. If I got to do a monthly Raiders book, I would freak. That would be awesome. And of course, Doctor Who. I'm a huge Doctor Who, just fanatic.
Who is your doctor?
My doctor is the one from Gallifrey. Because I love all of them, man. I love all the doctors. I grew up on Tom Baker, and but I came in like, you know, near the, like I really started like with the second Romana. So Peter Davison was the first Doctor I got to watch from beginning to end. When I started watching Doctor Who, it was when I lived in England. And I suddenly realized how rich it all was, like all the history of it. And by then they had these things called target books, which were novelizations of all the different episodes. even the missing ones. So I started with the first Adventures, and here I am supposed to be working, doing schoolwork and reading, history and English and all that. So no, I was blasting through like 3 or 4 Doctor Who novelizations a week. I was just like, until I caught up to where I was. And I loved it. And whenever I could see an old episode, I would watch it. So when New Who came back in 2005, I was just, oh my God, it's back. And not only is it back, it's back and better.
Right.
Because dropping the half-hour serialization meant you didn't have to pad episodes and doing it more like an episode of Next Gen, like it's a self-contained unit for 40 minutes.
Right.
And suddenly, adding stuff like the psychic paper meant you didn't have to run down hallways for 20 minutes. No one was chasing after the Doctor for no damn reason.
Right.
Because you go, okay, we trust you, even though you just appeared. Which is great. That was the best thing they could. So you got these really nice, tight, concise stories with great scripts and fantastic cast. And oh my God. So yeah, I would love to do Doctor Who stuff.
So would you do, if you were to do a Doctor Who book?
I can't do a comic for anyone other than Marvel because I'm exclusive.
Right. Well,
they have asked me, and I have to. This is like part of the heartbreak of my. Woe is me.
Right.
The guy who gets started Spider-Man. Oh, poor child. No. They've come to me and said, we'd like you to do Doctor Who comics, and I'm like, I can't. I can't. But in all fairness, like if I had to rank them, Spider-Man's my favorite character of all time. So my life is not hard.
No.
Yeah.
Just for me, and we'll open up the questions. I have one thing I wanted to touch on. Coming out of Civil War, the first Civil War, one of my favorite elements of Civil War. There were two, in my mind, there are two great things that came from Civil War. And one is The Order, by Matt Fraction. I love The Order. And the other is 100% Avengers Initiative.
Oh, yay!
Such a fun book with great characters that you instantly connect with. So, did you pretty much give like carte blanche, like, hey, here's a world that you can just start up, or did they have like here's a little bit of a framework, and then you kind of do your thing?
It was my first Marvel retreat I got to go to. And the reason I got to go to it, swear to God, one writer who should have been there was sick and couldn't come, and the other one had a problem. So they had these 2 empty seats, and they wanted more. They wanted another person in the room, and I live in New York. So Brevoort went, the She-Hulk guy, Dan Slott, he's doing all right. He lives in New York. You don't have to pay for a ticket to fly him in, and you don't have to put him up in the hotel. And the coin flip thing that said, where Joe Quesada went, yeah, bring him, was the event was catered and the food would go to waste. This is a turning point in my career. Marvel are such cheap, wonderful bastards that the fact they didn't have to fly me in and they didn't have to put me up, and food would go to waste. Bring him. Just make sure he doesn't say too much. And so I got to be there in the room and working on She-Hulk, a book that was like low tier. I had no dog in any fight. I had no dog in a fight. So I was able to throw out any suggestion or any idea. And one of the things they do at the retreats is they bring everyone up to speed on everything they've been doing in all the books. And then they talk about where the books are going in the future. And yeah, so they map everything out, but they always circle back in case other people forgot. So they always keep retreading and bringing stuff back up. And also the event, whatever the event is.
Right.
Every idea I threw out was something they'd already come up with at previous retreats. So they went, this guy knows what he's doing. He came up with the same brilliant idea that we've already had. He's just as brilliant as us. Or a new idea they hadn't thought of and went, hey, that's not bad. So everything coming out of my mouth was good. And I was I just had a really good day. I was really lucky. And I was doing really well. And I was throwing all this stuff out there. And at the end of the retreat, Quesada went over to Brevoort and went like, he wasn't bad. Bring him to the next one. And that got me in that room. And being in that room is great for your career. And during that time, I heard about the aftermath of the Civil War. And one of the things that Mark Millar had set up in Civil War is the Initiative. It's clearly set up, but no one wanted it. Everyone had all their other things they were working on. No one, and I'm sitting there looking at this like, no one is touching this. No one. Yeah. So
it's free. It's like there's 50 teams.
Yeah.
There could be 50 books.
Yeah, like no one wants to play with the Initiative. And then I was talking to Brevoort, and I was like, you know, what if someone did this? You know, like, oh, we were thinking of doing that. No, what if someone just did this book about you have to train all these people for these games, and then they get to go on, and then we can see them on the teams, and then you could do this, and then you could do that. And I started spitting all these ideas to him. He went, you know, this is pretty good. Throw this out tomorrow at the room. And I threw it out in the room, and one of the people who wasn't there was Mark Millar. And Bendis liked it, and Bendis called up Miller and went, what do you think this guy wants to do this book with this, and this, and this? And Miller liked it, went, yeah, okay, do it. I'm like, great. And that's how the Initiative happened. I was lucky enough to be in that room. I had the idea that night of, no, don't start it with the 50 teams already in place. That's a hard order to film.
Yeah.
And do it this, and there were certain things I wanted to fight against that everyone wanted. Like, I thought the worst version of the Initiative is, here's the team in Massachusetts with Lobster Man, you know, Cranberry Kid. Like, everyone would be like, here's the Vegas team with blue suede shoes. You know, like, what's the worst version? And everyone kept pushing for that. Everyone kept pushing for, you'd have these regional heroes with these regional names. And I'm like, no, you know what? If you live in this town, you want your team to be the Chargers. You want your team to be, you know, the Defenders. You don't want to be, you know, I don't know, the Wisconsin Maple Leafs or something. You don't want to be that. No, you want to be this, you know, your own thing. You want your own version of the Avengers. So that was the thing I was pushing for. So the Kentucky team is the action pack. You know, everybody had, instead of being like this, you know, and try to take characters that weren't currently in books and bring them, so that team had someone good on them, you know, or that team had a character no one was using, like the Sharon Ventura she thing, you know, or like everyone gets the, you know, Joe Costa will be on this team, and you will be on that team, but then also bring in our new kids who are raised and groomed, and now they graduate, and where do they go? You know, it became fun. It was a neat book.
Yeah, it was a real fun book. I liked it a lot. Like I said, selfish thing I just want to bring it up. Now we can just open it up to any kind of questions anybody might have for Dan.
Secret Wars? Can you talk about
It's over. The universe survived. It is now Marvel Prime. And if you say 616, Tom Brevoort comes over and hits you with a wet noodle. So I'm advising Mike Costas and all the guys working on Web Warriors to stick in 616 as often as they can. See if it sneaks in. See if anyone notices. Marvel Prime, it's serious. Secret Wars. But like, what do you mean?
Do you have a good experience writing the Vows book? I forgot the title.
The Renew Your Vows was a weird book because originally Spider-Verse was going to run in Superior Spider-Man. It was going to be a story about Doc Ock, Spidey Superior, leading a team of like hundreds and hundreds of Peter Parkers from alternate universes. In my mind, that was kind of cool. It was like Joker leading a team of Batman, and no one knew. You know, like there's something weird about that. And that was always the plan, and the story of Spider-Verse was a very different story. And like I said before at these retreats, we backtrack and lead up to things, and we constantly backtrack so everyone's on the same page. So they had heard the Spider-Verse story multiple times, and we were getting right up to key up and do it. It was right around the corner. And when I reminded people of what was Spider-Verse was about in one of these meetings, Axel Alonso went, wait a minute. This is happening during Superior? This is happening with Doc Ock? I thought Peter Parker was in this. Like, there's 1,000 Peter Parkers in it. And this is great. Axel goes, not the real one. I'm like, no, you're the no, and this started like this big argument in the room, and I lost, and the argument was, you only get to get all the various Universal Spider-Man together at one time. This is like a one-time only story. Peter Parker, the 616, Peter Parker is the one who's going to be in this story, not Doc Ock. You can do some weird time travel thing and bring Doc Ock into this story, but this is Peter Parker's story. So we had to rip out Spider-Verse out of Superior and move it down the road for a year. And now there was a hole in Superior Spider-Man, and that became the 2099 story, which set up Doc Ock's time jump so he could be there for Spider-Verse, and the Superior Venom story. But one of the things I brought up in the room was, if we move Spider-Verse forward a year, if we do this forward a year, it's going to butt almost right up against Secret Wars. So I'm going to do this story with a zillion alternate Spider-Man, and then you're going to do a story of all these zillion alternate Thors and zillion alternate Hulks and zillion alternate, won't that be weird? And Jonathan Hickman went in, I've got this, don't worry about this, let's do what's best for you. Do your story, don't worry about Secret Wars, I'll make Secret Wars work, you just do Spider-Verse there. And I was like, all right. And then it came time to decide, what everyone was doing during Secret Wars. And Hickman had worked out everything Amazing Spider-Man was doing in Secret Wars, because he was on that raft, and he was in that story. And I was kind of given 3 options what I could do during Secret Wars. These were all, one was, if I wanted to tell the story of Amazing Spider-Man, I could tell the same story that Jonathan was telling and tell the stories that were taking place in between the cracks. And I was like, I'm going to do 5, 6 issues of Amazing Spider-Man in between the cracks of Secret Wars. And that seemed boring to me. Like, I was stuck on whatever track Jonathan wanted. Where was the freedom in that? And it meant I would be doing all the stories that happened to Spider-Man on Tuesday. And he'd be telling the Friday stories, which were the cool ones. And I'd be telling Tuesday stories. And I was like, I don't want to do that. No, well, your other thing, you can do what everyone else is doing. Like Sam Humphries doesn't write Captain America. Sam Humphries doesn't write Hulk, but he's doing the adventures of Captain America on Devil Dinosaur in Planet Hulks. You can do whatever you want. Do your Moon Knight story, do some crazy weird thing, and just have a fun time. Jerry's doing, Wild West Marvels. Do whatever you want. Now I'm like, I write Spider-Man. And they're like, okay, well then here's your 3rd option. Tell a story with an alternate Spider-Man. I'm like, I just told a story with 12 million alternate Spider-Man. You want me now to do the diminished version of Spider-Verse. Take one guy, and now it's an alternate version. It's an alternate version. The real one's off in Secret Wars. And I just told the story with like hundreds. This is going to be the most boring thing. One guy from Spider-Verse having an adventure? Oh, who cares? And I was like, oh, this sucks. Then I was thinking about, and whenever I get into that kind of headspace, someone like, usually it's pre-board, says, just take some time and think about it, you'll hit it. And I was like, I've told the story of every possible alternate Spider-Man you could, oh no. And he's like, what? He's like, I got it. He's like, what? I know the one alternate Spider-Man we haven't used, the one we've avoided like the plague. If we did this, people would freak. And he's like, what? What Spider-Man is that? Because we had a rule we couldn't use zombie Spider-Man. He's thinking I'm, and a couple others. He's like, what? And I'm like, married Spider-Man. He's like, ooh. I'm like, yeah, we tell the adventure of what happened if they stayed married. People would lose it. And he's like, oh. And he went, talk to Joe. Because Joe Quesada was very invested in not just One More Day, but in also the fallout and the aftermath. And he put a lot of himself into that. And Joe, he's like, whether editor-in-chief or CCO, this is a guy, and also with a family and all this stuff, time is precious to this guy. And he drew all those issues. Like, that, the amount of time and effort and love he did to do that. When's the last time you've seen Joe Quesada interiors? You know, that was
a big deal. Yeah.
And for someone to do that as like the head of the company,
Yeah.
in all their spare time and not sleeping,
Right.
yeah. So he's very attached to that, and I knew that. And I went to Joe, and I went, "What if Joe? Would it be okay if I do that? What do you think?" And he went, "I trust you. Do it. You can do it." And I was like, damn, that was yeah. And then it was the one big change that happened with Renew Your Vows was because all this stuff happens all at the same time. When you're writing comics, it's like you're on a treadmill, and you're writing this story, but you're planning for that story, and maybe because that artist is really slow, you're writing this one 6 months ahead. So you're constantly writing stories in different time frames, and knowing that it's all going to fit together like a puzzle. It's a tricky job. It's like writing a novel with the chapters out of order. It's really weird. So like when I'm in the middle of Spider-Verse, I'm prepping for Renew Your Vows, and I'm also getting ready for, so everything's always happening at the same time. It's kind of like being Billy Pilgrim in Slaughterhouse-Five. It's really weird. So, the original ending of Renew Your Vows was going to be Mary Jane and Annie over Peter's grave laying flowers.
Wow.
That he gave his life up to save his family, but Region is out, and and I'm in the middle of Spider-Verse, and I'm just killing Spider-Man left and right. They're going down, all these different Peter Parkers, and I killed Mayday's dad, and I'm like, I can't keep doing this, you know. And also with Spider-Man 700, you know, like I can't be the guy who keeps killing Peter Parker. So partway through, I'm like, I'm giving him a happy ending. But that wasn't the original ending. When I pitched it to everyone in the room, it was over his dead body, over his grave, and people liked it. But I was like, when it came time to actually write it, I'm like, no, I'm giving you a happy ending. You need it. I need it. I need to give you a happy ending. Where was I going with this? One of the fun things was when I was pitching it in the room, we have this thing where at the creative summits, it's all these writers and all these editors, and we've just started using bringing in artists to the retreat to get the opinions of people who see things visually, and we started with Scotty Young. And the fun thing is, when you put an artist in that room, a lot of times they just stop and they listen and they see how it's all coming together. But the one thing you can't stop them from doing is drawing. Right. So Scotty would be drawing the whole time, and then at the end we're all like, oh, look at this is great. You see all these Scotty drawings of everything everyone had been talking about. And Scotty's great. Like if you read Rocket Raccoon or Rocket Raccoon Groot, he's fantastic. His creator-owned I Hate Fairyland. He's a great storyteller. And he would throw out ideas too. And we were like, we got to get more artists in here. And they brought in Andy Kubert for one of them. And now Andy comes a lot, and it's great. And he draws what everyone's talking about. And at the end of the retreat, we see all these great Andy Kubert drawings. But he was in the room when we were all pitching our Secret Wars events, and he comes up to me during the first break, and now he's heard everyone's story, and he just comes up and he goes, I'm drawing that. And I'm like, well, I have to draw that. And I'm like, you should probably talk to Nick, who's the editor. I can't approve this, you know. It would be awesome, but I can't approve that. And he just goes straight over to Nick and goes, Nick, I'm drawing that. The Spider-Man one. Peter and Mary Jane, I'm drawing that. He's like, okay. And that was it. That was it. So yeah, it's great to be in that room because you get stuff.
How did you decide which characters in the Spider-Verse to
flip a coin
keep or to get rid of? And like Spider-Gwen has become such a phenomenon.
Oh yeah, okay. Spider-Gwen was always, before there was Jason or Robbie, Spider-Gwen was always in this book, and her fate was to die in my outline. Spider-Man was going to die in a very noble, not in a Gwen Stacy way, in a very, because she's a victim in that story. She's going to be the most heroic damn sacrifice of all time, but really getting that football like into the end zone, like
right.
really, oh wow, that is mythic and epic. And we were doing all these Edge of Spider-Verse one-shots, and they tapped Jason and Robbie to do one, and they wanted to do one that would have screwed up a major point in my Spider-Verse story, where they wanted to tell the story of Uncle Ben who got bit, and he became, Spider-Man, and Peter helps him out, and they wanted to do Spider-Ben was this thing they wanted to do, and that was one of the times where, as the person running the event, as the writer, not as the editor, but I was like, I'm like, dude, I'm fighting this. They can't do that because we already have Uncle Ben Spider-Man in Spider-Verse, and he has this pivotal scene, and here's who he is, and here's where he came from, and they're like, we really liked Jason and Robbie's pitch. I'm like, sorry, and I said, well, we're not really doing anything to develop the backstory of Spider-Gwen. And she's in there, and she's going to do all this stuff in the story, and she's important. I think it would be cool to see where she came from. What if they wanted to do Spider-Gwen? And they went off, and they came up with everything. Robbie and Jason are amazing. And I'm an idiot. I had two things because I lived with this story for over a year, because it was originally going to be in Superior. And I remember running it by the artist who was originally going to draw it. I don't want to say names because he'll be like, oh, and he didn't get the draw? No. But I remember running it by, and I remember hitting the Spider-Gwen scene and describing her and him getting all excited and, I can't wait to draw Spider-Verse.
Right.
And so I'd been living with Spider-Gwen for a long time. And I had a very set idea of who she was and what she looked like and how she worked in the story. And it was nothing like what Jason and Robbie did. Mm. And they turned in that beautiful sketch and proposal, and my first reaction was, I don't like it, because it's not the thing in my head.
Right.
I really do not like this. I'm like, no, I have this vision for Spider-Gwen, and it was the best argument I ever lost. Because, oh my God, was I so wrong. And now it's like a phenomenon. It is a phenomenon.
Yeah.
And that is all Jason and all Robbie. I'm like, wow. I won the other argument, though, where the Spider UK, when I knew in my head how Spider UK looked, and he was a pivotal character in the story. And when Olivier drew him, we left a lot of room, like, add however many Spider-Men you want in the background, go crazy, knock yourself out, have fun, mm-hmm. come up with other Spider-Men. And these pages came in, and everyone's like, well, what do you think? And I'm like, these are gorgeous. I'm like, I can't find Spider UK anywhere. Like, how do I script this? Where's Spider UK? And Olivier's like, that's Spider UK. Like, that's not Spider UK. Because the way he drew it, he drew the character that became Spider-Punk. In his mind, UK meant punk. So he drew this Spider-Punk. And I'm like, no, it's in the plot. He's a member of the Captain Britain Corps. It's a mixture of the Captain Britain costume and Spider-Man. And he's this upright Captain Britain type. He's not a punk. And it's like, Olivier drew it. It's done. You're wrong on Spider-Gwen. This is fine. And I'm like, no. And I that one I fought. And the concession was, I said, look, the Spider-Punk design is gorgeous. We're definitely going to use it. I just need to do patches on these panels, and I swear to God, when we bring in Doc Ock, when we bring back Superior, he will have two main henchmen, and one of them will be Spider-Punk. And I was thinking, and in my mind, I'll be like, I'll be henchman number 2. So when you actually read the issue that Olivier was so invested in Spider-Punk, and it's a great design, and he's right, because I go to cons and I see so many more people cosplaying as Spider-Punk than ever show up as Spider UK. I've seen Spider UKs, but people love Spider-Punk, so he was right. But his opening shot is Superior Spider-Man. Da-da-da, it's the amazing reappearance of Superior Spider-Man. And it's supposed to be him and his 2 henchmen. And instead, when you see that page, it's Spider-Punk and Doc Ock and the other guy. Which is great. And there's a lesson there that it's a collaborative medium. And if you ever get your artist excited about something, that's a great thing, because they're going to draw the hell out of that. So it's always important to keep it collaborative and not try to be a bully and go and stick him in the background, because you won't get good art. You'll get fantastic art if you let the artist just have a great time and you write for them and you write so like as this thing you're both doing together. It's great.
So we got, honestly, I don't think we have that much time anymore. We got maybe time for one more question.
If you got to do Fantastic Four, what kind of storylines would you go for?
The greatest stories ever. No, but like if you know me and you know like the way I write Silver Surfer, it would be a little more serious. But I love the whole cosmic adventure of you can go anywhere, you can do anything. In my mind, the FF aren't superheroes. They're explorers. Yeah. They go where and the fun of it is when you read the original Lee and Kirby FFs, there is a great idea every issue. It just keeps building and building. And here's the Inhumans, and here's Galactus, and here's Annihilus, and here's this, and now we're going to the negative zone. Now we're going to here. Here's the most powerful being in the world, but it's an infant. It's like these things, they just constantly bombard you. And once Lee and Kirby leave, everyone goes, and now let's see Galactus again. And now let's see Annihilus again. And now, and what seems to be missing is that go anywhere, do anything, anything could happen. You never know what's going to hit you next in a Fantastic Four comic.
Right.
Reed Richards isn't a stodgy guy with his face in a book. Reed Richards is Indiana Jones with the greatest technology in the universe that came out of his own head.
Right.
All these characters are the most like amazing. Ben is the guy who won't stay down, who'll keep fighting. Johnny is the free spirit who just is having the time of his life, holding on. Sue is the force that holds them all together, and she's really the one who should be in charge.
Right.
This
secretly kind of is.
Yeah, and more than anything, they're a family.
Right.
So it's the family that goes out and explores the universe and constantly sees new things. The thing we're trying to do in Silver Surfer is when you read the original Marvel Comics when it starts off in the 60s, you kept exploring things, you kept meeting things in all the books. And something kind of felt like, now that you know, here's Eternity, and here's Galactus, and here's the In-Betweener, and here's this, and here's that, there became a point when everyone felt like, you ever see The Truman Show? The moment when little Truman goes, I want to be an explorer, and the teacher goes, you can't. Everything's been discovered. Oh. Right. Someone at some point in Marvel, like the consciousness became the universe is set. But when you think about it, there's only really been about 50 years of Marvel history that us humans have been transcribing. And if someone ever told you that it only takes 50 years to know everything there is in the universe, right, you'd be like, I'm sorry, no. And the Marvel universe should feel like that. We should meet things as big as Galactus, concepts as crazy as Eternity. All the time, the universe should constantly be being reformed and rethought and going to new boundaries and seeing what else is out there. And to me, that's the fun that the FF is. That if you come on and you're doing FF, if you suddenly find yourself writing your 4th Diablo story, get off. You're doing it wrong. Or you can do 1 Diablo story, you can do 2, you can do 3, over time. You get ideas, here's your 6th Doctor Doom story. It's Doom. He's cool. Right. But, if you're writing FF and that's all you're doing, it feels wrong to me. It feels like, I want to see what the next thing is. That's I loved it when they brought in Valeria, because part of your mind went, and now they have Franklin, and it's set. Right. And so, well, of course they have a second kid. You know, the problem with Franklin is the minute you introduce Franklin into the Marvel Universe, you age the Marvel Universe.
Right.
You know, suddenly Peter Parker, if Franklin's now 10 years older, now Peter Parker is 10 years older too. Now Daredevil is 10 years older. Now everyone is 10 years older because that stupid Franklin. You know, so every time you add characters, like when they did the thing in, was it The Loners? Where suddenly you found out that like Julie Power is in college and
Oh yeah, yeah.
what? Oh my God! Everyone else was
like the entire power pack in the Loners itself.
Yeah, you're like everyone must be so damn old in the Marvel Universe. For a long time, when I would be writing Spider-Man, people would ask me at shows like, "Is there any villain you don't want to write?" And I would say yes, and I would say the Vulture. The Vulture is the stupidest character ever. I never want to write a Vulture story. And my take would be like, Peter Parker was 15 years old and fighting him when he was an old man. Now he must be ancient. He must be decrepit. And every time that Peter Parker, now in his 20s or 30s, is punching the Vulture, it's like hitting your grandpa. It is like punching Orville Redenbacher. It is like the worst thing you could possibly do. I feel so bad. The Vulture is the stupidest character now. I never want to write a Vulture story. And I kept doing the Orville Redenbacher bit way too many times. And one time Brevoort just said, I am now ordering you. You are writing Vulture stories. You will see Steve Ditko created this character along with Stan. This is a brilliant character. Write a Vulture story now. And I'm like, and then I wrote a 2-part Vulture story, and I went, oh my God, he is awesome. This is great. He's the old guy. This is fantastic. I love this.
Right.
You know.